All right, welcome to the video series that's going to discuss really our hospitality industry and what's going on right now, and really looking at the reopening of the industry and best practices. So I'm here with Miguel Miranda. I'm Roger Curlin. I'm the co-owner, co-founder of Club Savor. We're a local hospitality consultancy group and dining club. Born in the Tampa Bay area here, so I'm very much a fan of what we're doing locally, and let Miguel introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Miguel Miranda, and I'm partner with my Restaurant CFO, as well as lead instructor with the USF St. Pete Hospitality Leadership Program. And what we're doing right now with Roger and I really was the idea of helping our industry here in St. Pete, Tampa, Florida, and really beyond, whoever's watching this. And really what we're going to talk about is going to be applicable for anyone in any part of the country. But the idea is not so much what's happened or what do I do this very moment, but more so is what do I do with coming next? How do I get reopened once this order comes out, and what that process is going to look like? And so what we've done is going to have conversations really around set different areas of things that you should be doing or thinking about. And we really want to help you change your mindset, how you see the world, how you see your organization, and how you see what you should be doing next. So we're really excited about having these conversations between you and I, and obviously in support of what USF St. Pete is currently doing through its hospitality leadership program.
Excellent, Miguel. We're looking to do these in 10 to 15 minute vignette series. So our goal is to tape these and then publish these daily. So keep checking back with the Facebook group on these videos, and please give us input on the site as well as to what you would like to see. We're going to avoid trying to spend time on stuff we know you guys are doing or really should be doing. We want to take it up a notch from there. We're also going to front load those topics where we've got to get on those right now, right? So that's our goal, just in time. The where. So we're doing the who, where, when, why. We're here at Big C. They've been very generous and they're shooting the video for us. So a shout out to Zooey, Alex, and the team here at Big C. Thank you guys very much. And then I think I want to talk about really what the state of the industry is right now, Miguel. So we know, and economists and leaders are talking about a 25 to 75% loss of independent restaurants.
Right.
And where that falls, we're really not going to know. I think the reopening phase is really going to show us who survived, who didn't. And it's a double survival. It's who survived to reopen, and then once you reopen, can you get up enough steam to survive that? So give us some of your thoughts on kind of the state of the union for the industry.
Yeah, it's like you said, obviously not knowing when we're going to reopen is going to make a big change as to whether you can or cannot. The longer we're staying closed, for some of these places that are already open, they're burning through cash. The initial game plan was we're going to have some money coming in from the federal government. As we all know, looking at the news, nothing new to tell you guys. Not enough money went out to specifically the ones needed. And even if we hadn't given the money to the large corporations, which looks like a lot of them are giving the money back, it's still not enough to go around. And so the question comes into play is, how much money do I have to get restarted on my working capital? And let's look back first at what the industry looked like before the crisis. And you and I have had a lot of these conversations. A lot of restaurants prior to the crisis didn't have more than 20, 25 days worth of working capital to work with. In other words, what they were making today, we may have only paid some bills about 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out max.
Right.
And so if they burned through some of that prior to this, when we actually had a strong economy, high revenue, comparatively, it puts them in a really bad spot. Now, obviously we know there was an overbuild, so not everyone's in that position. So what we see this right now is that there's a lot of people that were barely hanging on prior to the crisis, and those individuals are not going to come back moving forward. What does that mean? Obviously less competition when you first do reopen back up again. But the big question is going to be is how many people are going to be willing to go out to eat. So the big question sitting out there obviously is, when do we reopen?
Right.
How many people are comfortable going out to eat and what that looks like,
right,
and obviously what kind of restrictions the government's going to put on us as an industry to be able to get reopened.
Yeah, so I really look at taking what you're saying, Miguel. I look at a couple of other things as well. So some of the nationals may lose market share, but they're really much better prepared to weather a longer storm. because of assets, financing. They often own the property they sit on. And so we're really looking right now and talking to independents as our core audience that we'll be speaking with. And really, you look at three things. So the industry has been painted fairly or unfairly, really as a breeding ground of COVID. They were one of the first industries that really got shut down in a big way, in hospitality venues. So when we do reopen, there's probably going to be a reverse engineering of that. How much of the public is going to come back out and in what numbers to support our restaurants when that happens. So that's a big thing. I mean, you can shop, you can get a haircut, you can see a movie, you can play a sport with a mask on. You can't eat and drink while you're wearing a mask, right? So that's one of the tough things that the industry is looking at. The other thing I look at is consumers have learned new habits during these past 6 weeks. So some of them have learned to cook, some of them learned how to get food delivered. And so these new habits, are they going to stick? Or are they going to come back, as you said before, and have those prior habits? And so these are a lot of mysteries that are out there. As you said, the financial lifeline hasn't appeared for most people. And the numbers I've looked at, Miguel, and I'll listen to you as well, is that the overall hospitality industry, restaurants have seen an 80% decline in revenue overall.
Correct.
So some places are holding steady. Some places have gone to zero, but overall about 80% have lost income.
Yeah, so currently it looks like if you, obviously we know that a lot of restaurants are shut down 100%. So that's 100% loss. So the number you're giving out, the 80%, is a blend between those that are shut down completely and then the ones who actually have stayed open in some fashion. The ones that have stayed open, even those are around about a 50% loss to a 50 to 40, 65% loss, depending on what kind of business it is.
Right.
And there are some that are still open, there's still some door to delivery, but they were more of a full service style. And there were some that were quick service that actually have been okay. Had a conversation earlier. There was one concept that, we're friendly with that currently is actually matching prior year's numbers, but it was built for that. It was primarily, even compared to the other units they have, that specific unit was built for automatic takeout. It was a small dining room. Right. People were already used to it. And so when you have that kind of environment ahead of time, it does look great. But the majority of restaurants, and especially independent restaurants, are not quick serve Chipotle style restaurants. Most of them are family centered, sit down, have a meal with us, get to know you, and those restaurants are getting crushed right now. And you're right, about 80% loss if the ones that are going to be opening right now. Right. And the challenge is going to be is once we get reopened, is where was that guest base coming from, right, which we're going to dig into later in some of the conversations. But travel is going to be greatly restricted, even with a couple of different phases coming out from the government as to when you can get reopened and what that looks like. Even up to phase 3, they're still limiting travel or non-essential travel, and so our restaurants here in the beaches, right, who are dependent on tourism, is going to be a big challenge for them.
Well, and you look at Florida, you look at Las Vegas, destinations that really feed off of business travel, right, and conventions and conferences and tourism. This is going to be a longer path out. This is not a spigot on, spigot off type deal. Right. One of the other things we want to talk about is with the PPP. Even if you're able to access that, if you're not open fully, you can't bring all the staff back. And so really that PPP becomes a loan. And even though it's a 1% loan, it's still debt on top of debt oftentimes for a lot of these independent operators. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, Miguel, is really, we look at, there's 3 phases to the reopening of the hospitality businesses. One is going to be the announcement of when hospitality can reopen and under what rules. The second is going to be the preparation for reopening, right? So you guys have to prepare to reopen. So restaurant and menu redesign, restaffing, restocking, a lot of re's, right? Marketing. And then the third phase is the reality of the reopening. So as we said already, are there going to be enough customers to survive once we reopen? Now we know there's going to be a ramp up time, but how quickly do you need to get to that break even point? So, one of those, having all 3 of those phases, we've got to move through those really quickly as restaurants and start our preparing now. Right. And that's why we're doing this, to help give the gaps that you might not have thought about, to fill those in so you can start building towards that reopening and hopefully surviving and then thriving after that. One of the things, Miguel, that I've loved, we've had a conversation on prior, and I want to bring that up, is the mindsets that are out there in these different quadrants of folks we're working with. So talk about the consumer mindset?
Yeah, definitely. So from a consumer's point of view, think about it. You've been cooped up for weeks, depends on part of the country, maybe longer, months on end, and you're anxious to get out. And we're already seeing, obviously, some people are protesting, they're raring to go. That being said, you may be raring to go, maybe get back to work, but are you raring to go to be in a small room, basically, a dining room with a bunch of strangers you don't know their habits, what they've done, they've not done, and really test the situation. And so I think there's going to be high-level anxiety amongst consumers when they first walk in anywhere and to say, okay, I am ready to take this risk on. And so I think that's one big mindset. And one thing I was thinking about is that, we're going to have some processes in place to make sure we're clean and safe, and they have to be there. But from a consumer's point of view, they actually want to see that process. They don't want to smell the bleach, but they definitely want to make sure that they can see that there is some thought process being put into place as to what you actually are going to do. There's a place actually we take for our dog food that we pick up nearby, the pet supermarket, and they have really figured out to the T the whole entire process, step by step, to make sure that when I go pick up this dog food, not only are employees safe, but I'm safe. And as a consumer, it actually gives me a lot of comfort. Whereas when I have to go to, say, Walmart to get something different, not all of the situations, granted they've put some things in place, not everything's being followed to the T. And so I think that from a consumer, they want to make sure these things are actually happening. The other part from their mindset is, how much money do I have to spend? And so, yes, one thing I'll tell you, for my family, we actually spent way less money this past month because we're dining at home. We're buying at lower prices. We're cooking for ourselves. We're not paying for the labor of someone else to cook for us. So our money has stretched out this month much further than Elvis has in months past. And so the question is going to come for a consumer coming out is saying, hey, how much money do I have to spend on dining out or anything else coming out? But definitely for us, dining out or eventually maybe go get a drink somewhere. And what is the likelihood my income will stay at the level that it currently is, depending on what my company looks like. And yes, our restaurants have been affected, but this has also a trickle-down effect on the office workers and things like that. One big thing is coming out of this is a lot of conversations, especially I'm talking to the developers and landlords, is the big question of what commercial real estate, office real space looks like in the future. And how many companies are saying, you know what, we can actually work with less space, with people working from home, because we just did it for 2 months and we actually expanded our business, or we're working just fine. And they're also going to be in some tough situations moving forward. So those are the kind of things that I think that we need to take a look at as a consumer, saying, hey, do I have money to take care of what I'm currently in? Do I need to put money aside?
Absolutely. And I look at it as, I call it save. So before the consumer, when they're coming out to dine, they're looking for great food and an atmosphere. Really, that's what they're looking for. And now I call it save. So they're looking for safety. They're looking for attentiveness. They're going to be looking for value because of the economics you talked about, and an experience. So SAV. So it's a much different customer that you're going to be dealing with. I love the example of pet supermarket. There's also grocery stores that have put in one-way shopping, right? So you go down the aisle, you don't have to, have people crowded around you. So there's some really great examples out there of folks dealing with this, and I love what you said about the business mindset. 65% of our economy is driven by the consumer. That's where our GDP is at, and so any slowdown in that automatically puts us into a recession, and then we have to deal with the economics of that on top of the health crisis. One thing I want to talk about with you, Miguel, is staff mindsets. So what is the mindset of the staff? What are they dealing with before the crisis, and what are they dealing with now?
The staff right now currently obviously is anxious to get back to work. Why? Because unfortunately here in Florida, majority of those individuals who are not working don't have unemployment checks coming in. We're one of the few states, and unfortunately our system has not kept up with, well, I wouldn't say kept up, it's not done well at all. And so while they took some time off thinking, okay, at least I'll get unemployment, they're not getting anything. They might be getting a $600 check from the federal government, but that's about it. Right. And so they're anxious to get back. They really want to get back in there. That being said, there could be some people feeling a little not too happy that they were the ones let go. The ones that are currently working, they're probably working for less money, potentially. And so there's an anxious to get back to what it used to be like. And my current concern looking at it really is, what these individuals are willing to do or not do. And it kind of reminds me when we hired pre-crisis, where we would hire somebody and say, hey, when are you available? And they would say, I'm available any day you want, morning to midnight, I can work any Sunday. And then about 3 months into it, all of a sudden they're not available on Sundays, they can't work certain days. And so, I think from an employee right now, they're gonna say they're willing to do whatever it takes. Is that really true? I think our job as employers is really dig into it. Okay, what is the likelihood you may not? Not saying you shouldn't hire them. It's just you got to be smart about it, because you may under or over hire. But I think most workers, they want to get back into it. Other piece of it is obviously their concern for their own safety, and we're hearing it from current employees who haven't been let go yet, as well as the ones who are not back yet but are wondering what kind of environment it's going to be like. And there are already lawsuits happening, and especially in Orlando, we're seeing from some employees. They're suing their employers for not really keeping a safe work environment. OSHA has put out new regulations, a little stricter, and I think for us as restaurants, when we take a look at it, is what are we actually doing to protect our employees? And they want to see that. They want to make sure we actually have thought about it and put some things in place for them.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some anxiety bringing employees back, like what are my roles going to be? What procedures do I have to follow? So it's kind of the unknown. And as you said, there's going to be some employees that got let go that are not going to have a real good feeling about coming back. I also think we're going to lose a percentage of the hospitality staff industry, and that's naturally going to happen anyway with a reduction. But I think some people are going to leave the industry and just say, hey, I've had enough. And there may be some owners that do that as well.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's already happening. There's some restaurants that have shut down permanently, right. And mainly because the owner said, hey, I'm not really ready to, I don't want to keep doing this. Right. I've ran it for 20 years. It's ran its course. It's been a phenomenal business for me, but the reality is at this point, it's not really worth it to me. So both owners, employees, and we had a shortage of employees prior to the crisis, and right. So one positive, if there is a positive, is if these restaurants that don't come back, it would hopefully give us a little more of the talent pool that we need to be able to run our restaurants effectively and efficiency. Now, one thing I will say and add on is, you said a few minutes ago, what's going to be required of an employee moving forward is going to be much greater than it was before. Right. If you're a quick serve, just being a cashier would not be sufficient. You'll be able to do some light prep, be able to do some other things. If you're a cook, they may need you to come and man a register. Really, I think what I'm seeing already, some of the owners talking about is how we cross-train everyone, and so the employees that come back have to be ready and willing to do those things. Right. The idea of, well, that's not part of my job. It wasn't part of the equation before. It really is not going to be part of the equation moving forward. Agreed.
And as we wrap up this session, a couple of final mindsets. So the vendor mindsets. The vendors that work with the hospitality industry have really been hit hard as well. And so what is their mindset? What is are they prepared to ramp back up? How are they financed? It might be a good time to get some backups to some vendors you've had. Look to product shift to create more value for your business. And so you may have a little bit of extra leverage right now when it comes to vendors. Real quick, to government mindsets, the challenge is we've got federal, state, county, city. We have all of these different regionalities and all of these different levels of government to deal with, and the mindset is all over the board. Correct. So what we have to do is look at our restaurant, our locality, and go through all four of those to see where do we fit in what is being. Is there help coming to us? Is there understanding coming to us? And so that's a really big piece of what we need to evaluate as hospitality owners. Couple of housekeeping notes as we wrap, Miguel. So we'll be using the Facebook group to post new content, materials. Please give us your feedback. That's going to be the best way that we can make sure that we're gearing the information to you that you need. Most experts are agreeing we're probably 12 to 18 months under the rosiest picture of a vaccine. There's been discussion of repeat waves of the crisis coming back. So we don't know what the future is going to hold. We do know we will be allowed to reopen. I sense that we will be, and we go from there. Right. So thank you everyone for being here today. Miguel, any final comments before we go for this session?
You said a minute ago about the fact that this is coming in phases, and if you're not right now thinking, how am I going to reopen? And again, if you've already gone over the hurdle of should I reopen, but if you know already I'm going to reopen, you have to be working on this immediately. So we really hope these sessions help you start thinking about the right ways to do it. But if you're not looking at this, I encourage you to get some advice somewhere and start looking at it immediately, because once they put that order in place, it's going to ramp up pretty fast. And so we're glad you're part of this audience and interacting with us, and definitely ask as many questions as possible. We'll be engaging in the comment sections and answering as many questions as we possibly can, and love to actually get your feedback on what is currently working for you or things you're hearing that we haven't talked about.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Big C team.
Thank you.